What's good, y'all? Elite live streams. We back with another one. How are you guys doing out there? Hope you guys are having a great week. Welcome back to the channel. Salute, man. We are growing. The channel is, I think we're about 30 subscribers from 1,000, you guys. So we are almost there, man. Appreciate all the support and the love. The last live streams and the videos have been really going crazy. You guys have been leaving me great feedback and a lot of support, man, and I really appreciate it because this is what we do over here. We're growing, we're putting out great content, and now it's really starting to pay back. You know what I'm saying? We're really starting to see a lot of the growth that I put into this. You know what I mean? We put into this over here at Elite Media. So yeah, today, what are we talking about, guys? So today's a very interesting topic because everybody's talking about, Jack Harlow and his new album, and as well kind of the rollout, right? The interviews and the things that he's starting to kind of come out and say that are related to kind of this rollout that he's been putting out. And I thought it would be fun to put a nice little caption on just the entire idea of what he's trying to accomplish right now. And a lot of us Black Americans, we could see this from a mile away about what he's trying to do, what he's trying to accomplish, and as well, kind of the blueprint that he's taking that we've kind of been seeing this for a very long time. And so I put together this thumbnail, as you can see with, Jack Harlow at the top, and then we got Kid Rock at the bottom, right? Kid Rock is also one of those guys who switched up from, as you can see in before, a traditional rapper DJ from Detroit. And then he eventually switched out of that persona. And now he's, full on MAGA, as you guys can see. He's aging like hot milk. And this is kind of just a replay, right? I always like to talk about history on this channel because I always try to make it clear that we always see history repeating itself. And it's very interesting how that kind of works. The same with, as you can see, Post Malone, right? Post Malone came out as a rapper, you know what I'm saying? The White Iverson. And then as soon as he got the attention and the support that he needed, he immediately switches out into now country music, singing, songwriter archetype, right? And mind you, that's based on a lot of the principles that he's learned from traditional Black American music, right? And so if fast forward or we rewind all the way back to someone like Elvis, right? A lot of people talk about Elvis as being the quote unquote king of rock and roll, right? But we all know that he stole a lot of the styles of a lot of traditional soul, blues artists of that time, and he was able to use and put his own spin on it to create it into what it is considered today as a part of what they would consider rock and roll. He's the king of rock and roll, whatever. So I wanted to do a little deep dive today. I wanted to come out here and show exactly the history behind this and how a lot of foundational Black Americans have a huge opinion about it, right? Because we've kind of seen it over and over, generation of generation, where we see these white artists who come into our genres, use our specific styles and recipes to create music. And not only that, they go and then they switch up, right? As soon as they get what they need from us, they switch up. And so now I just wanted to make sure that, we kind of bring this all home because this is something that we've all kind of seen the writing on the wall and just how these things kind of work, right? So let's start from the top, right? So let me pull this up for you guys. I got a little something for you guys here. Boom. Now let's go with this one. Yeah, let's go with that one. This is the evolution of African-American music, right? What they consider African-American music, right? So as you can see, right towards the middle, you have the rural blues, right? Rural blues, everything, in my opinion, starts from blues and jazz. That's kind of just the overall genres that kind of have birthed so many different, genres of music that we have traditionally created, right? So if you look at the very top, it has the Black American sacred traditions, and then you have the secular traditions, and then you have secular tradition instrumentals, right? And then it kind of breaks down into all these different genres, right? And like I said, you got blues, you got soul, you got rhythm and blues, you got urban blues, rock and roll, rock, soul. Then you have the civil rights freedom songs, all the way over to the bebop, ragtime, all the way down. New Orleans jazz, early jazz band, swing, you feel me? And then on the other side, you have your folk spirituals, your folk gospel, gospel hymns, traditional gospel, gospel groups, right? So all these traditional genres, right, that we kind of see today that are considered what you would say modern music for today, or what I like to say soul music, right? I'm a huge soul music fan. That's the music type of music that I make. It's very, very influential in my life. And so when you had, right, the soul music, the soul artists that were so influential to a lot of the current, or what you would say the archetypes of those times, now we're starting to see kind of how that goes, right? So let's look at this, right? Let's go here. Okay. So I wanted to kind of bring this up to speed, right? So we'll start with the very early times, right? This was what I would say kind of the birth of modern music, and kind of as well the beginning times of what we would consider any type of style of music, right? So let me see here. Let me bring this up real quick. Give it a second to do its thing. All right, bet. Okay, so now let's share my screen here. Boom. Let's see if that'll do it. Let that go ahead and load up. All right, sweet. Got that up here. So now, let me take that down. Let's bring this up. If it'll let me, obviously. All right, there we go. So we got the Beach Boys, right? The Beach Boys were one of the most famous bands of that time, right? And the Beach Boys obviously have a very legendary status in the rock and roll, very early on band, big band era, right? And a lot of people don't talk about is the fact that the Beach Boys were one of the first bands to steal music from traditional Black American artists, right? So let's talk about it. The Beach Boys, specifically Brian Wilson, used the melody of Chuck Berry's 1958 hit, Sweet Little 16, for their 1963 hit, Surfin' USA, okay? So look, if you look at the timeline, 1958, Chuck Berry was one of the biggest rock and roll artists of his time, right? He was literally considered one of the greatest guitarists to ever live, right? Chuck Berry was already solidified at this time in 1958 when he dropped Little 16, okay? So going from Little 16, you fast forward to 1963, right? Where, like I said, this is what would happen a lot of times. A lot of times these Black artists didn't own the royalties to their music. So what a lot of these white artists would do was what they would consider traditional covers, right? Which we can consider nowadays, which would be a cover band. But if we're keeping it real, the Beach Boys were a cover band because the music that they stole was from Chuck Berry, who had already created his Little 16 song since 1958. So you fast forward to 1963, they dropped Surfin' USA, right? So while the lyrics were original, the melody was a direct copy, leading to a lawsuit threat and a settlement for Chuck Berry, okay? He got full songwriting credits from this and publishing royalties, okay? This was a major thing for him because at this time, the Beach Boys were considered one of the biggest bands in America and worldwide. So for him to be able to get royalties and songwriting credit for that song, one of their biggest singles that, in my opinion, is one of their most famous singles, that was major for this time, especially for a Black American, okay? So Surfing USA was intended, right? We'll put that in quotations, as a tribute to Chuck Berry, which we already know if they can steal, they're going to steal it. Okay. And that's just a part of kind of, the mentality, right, of what we saw from Ryan Coogler, where he wrote this story for Sinners, where it was based on a lot of what the musicians, right? Salute to Chuck Berry. Yes, sir. Salute to him. Thank you, Johnny Retro. Salute to Chuck Berry. Yes, that's facts, because Chuck Berry was definitely one of the greatest to ever do this, one of the greatest guitarists to ever live. So him being able to be so far ahead in 1958, these guys thought in 1963, okay, it's been a while, we can go ahead and try to steal this melody and song. But Chuck was like, hell no, this is definitely my song, right? So to avoid a lawsuit, the Beach Boys manager, Murray Wilson, signed over the publishing rights to Arc Music, Chuck Berry's publisher, okay? Which was a major, like I said, this was a major turning point in how Black Americans were able to not only take ownership of their intellectual property, but it also gave them the rights to what they created. You know what I'm saying? And that's why even what we see now with the tendernism, Mr. Tendernism or Unc, that was why it was so important for him to trademark the word tendernism, because if he didn't, we would already see history repeating itself. And that's why I always love to make sure that I bring up the history first, because it's important when we tell these stories and when we go over these type of modern day, you know what I mean, thieves, right? These are modern day thieves, but they've been stealing, we already know, since the beginning of time. They are the original thieves. They are the original people who do not have any creative bones in their body. So what they do, they will steal, okay, and find any way that they can to latch onto us like vampires, okay, to be able to steal what we are creating. All right, so let's continue. For decades, Chuck Berry received the songwriting royalties and also the publishing for Surfing USA, leaving the Beach Boys with almost no money from their biggest, earliest hit. And that is so important to this story because, like I mentioned, they are the original thieves. So for us to be able to take ownership of what was ours is very, very important. Okay. So look, there was also some people who have, you know what I mean, going out of their way to say that the Beach Boys also had a song called Fun, 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 which you guys know about, which was partially stolen from Chuck Berry's major hit, Johnny Be Good. And you can listen to those similarities very, very quickly and easily. And you can see just how connected those songs are. You know what I'm saying? And how connected those melodies were to the structure of the Beach Boys as an entire band. Okay. And it's funny because these are type of things that a lot of people don't know when it comes to the history of music. And not only that, the history of Black American music. All right. Which is, like I said, which is one of the stems of all music. All right. So then we can fast forward, right, to, like, let me bring this up again for you guys. I'm going to bring that down and let's bring this up. All right. So look, that fast forward into our boy, Mr. Elvis Presley, right? Mr. Elvis Presley, okay? One of what they would like to say, the king of rock, right? That's what they call him in that community. We know that's a lie, but that's what he is considered in their community, all right? So we're going to bring up a video for you guys that, in my opinion, debunks all of that because, like I said, a lot of people don't know this brother either, all right? So I'm going to bring him up and I'm going to let you guys do what we got to do, all right? So let's go here, all right? Salute to V. Thank you, man. Let me, let this come up real quick. All right, salute V. How you doing? Thank you, V. Hey, Turian, what up? What up? What up? Y'all pulling through. Y'all pulling up. What up? What up? What up? Hey, Johnny Retro says, I got more respect for Elvis than Jack. Which Jack, sir? Which Jack? Let me know. Jack White? Who are you talking about? Jack who? Let me know. Let me know in the chat. Johnny, let me know. All right. So I'm going to bring something up for you guys real quick, just so you guys can get a really good deep dive on. Let me hold on. Let me make sure my stream is together, because you know what they be doing. All right. So let me bring this up for you guys so we can go. Oh, Jack Harlow. Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't really say that, though, because in my opinion, Jack Harlow and Elvis are one and the same to me, in my opinion. All right. This is just my opinion. All right. So I want you guys to listen to this. Listen to this. All right. And let me know what this sounds like to you. All right.
R&B singer who greatly influenced Elvis's vocal style.
Roy had a record called I'm Gonna Hold On Tight and Don't Let
Let's start
Here
it
in
over.
a rare movie appearance was Roy Hamilton.
My chickadee, come here to me.
An obscure R&B singer who greatly influenced Elvis's vocal style.
Roy had a record called
All right. Did you guys hear that? Did you guys hear that? Hey, they play on my stream, y'all. This is what happens, y'all. This is what happens. I mean this every time, bro. I get on here and expose these dudes. This is exactly what they do. But did y'all hear that, though? Did you guys hear that? Y'all caught that, right? Y'all caught that. Y'all caught that, right? Wow. Yes, sir. Oh, my gosh. Yes, sir. Straight diabolical. Yes, sir. This is what I like to talk about. This is the type of stuff. This is my lane. I do this. I don't know. Like, they playing on my stream, obviously, but we're going to keep rocking. They playing with the stream, but it's okay, because we're going to keep rocking, because we're going to keep spreading the truth. All right. So like you guys just heard, all right, who did that sound like to you? Huh? Who did that sound like to you? That sound like somebody I know who they call the king of rock and roll, doesn't it? Doesn't it sound awfully like that person? Let's hear it again.
Here in a rare movie appearance was Roy Hamilton.
My chickadee, come here to me.
An obscure R&B singer who greatly influenced Elvis's vocal style.
Roy had a record called I'm Gonna Hold On Tight and Don't Let Go.
Well, I won't stop for $1,000,000. I love you so. Just hold me tight and don't let go.
Oh, I don't let go. Oh.
Listen, man. Listen. All right. This is why it is very important to know your history and to study history extensively, because, like, man, and because if I'm keeping it real with y'all, they don't want you guys to know this stuff. All right. This is the type of stuff that gets suppressed. All right. This is the type of stuff that will not get into the algorithm. Okay. Because when you hear it, you cannot deny it. All right. Your ears aren't going to play tricks on you. It's going to tell you exactly what you need to know. And obviously, when you hear that, there is no discussion. There is no doubt about who that is. Okay. Elvis Presley stole his whole swag from brother Roy Hamilton. They called him an obscure R&B artist. Okay. An obscure R&B artist. All right, yes, his name is Roy Hamilton. ROYHAMILTO. Yes, indeed. Roy Hamilton. Roy Hamilton, y'all. Yes, indeed. The archetype, the one with the real voice, the one with the real soul. Okay, who brought that style that was completely unique. Okay, they called him an obscure R&B artist. Yeah, sure, in comparison to the king, right? But in reality, he was the one. He created the voice, the cadence, the style, even the big band sound. Okay, so when I see this type of things with Jack Harlow, trying to make the switch. Like who? Like the rest of them. All right, let's bring them all up right again. All right, this is the prime representation of that. Kid Rock used to be a rapper. Now he's a country singer. Post Malone used to be a rapper. Now he's a country singer. Elvis was going around to small juke joints across Tennessee, stealing the swag of people like Roy Hamilton. All right, let's keep it going. Now we got Jack Harlow. Okay, do you guys see the blueprint here? Do you see the blueprint? Do you see how this all comes together, baby? Yes, Miley Cyrus. Yes, indeed. She sure did. She sure did. And as soon as the heat started to get a little hot, she dipped out. She said, "Oh no, we gotta go." Yep, Pink. Yep, swag straight up, Pink. Yep, keep going. Post Malone and Kid Rock are the worst, indeed. Hey man, Pink. Hey, she's one of them too. Pink was pushed as an R&B artist, okay, and then once she got the attention that was necessary and the validation from who? The Black American community, she dipped off and just became whatever she's becoming now. Look, man, they're gonna play with the stream, y'all, because I'm cooking right now. They're gonna play with the stream. Ariana Grande, yes, indeed, very, very small, but yep. Hey, Drake would co-sign Jack Harlow's move. Of course he would, because we already know what Drake is. Drake got exposed, and hey, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. We already knew what that was, though. You know what I'm saying? We already knew what that was. We knew that Drake had always been using ghostwriters and creating narratives and using a lot of, behind the scenes help from, the 24 karat people. Y'all know who they are. You know what I'm saying? He was using a lot of that. And so naturally, we saw kind of how these things went. But it is important, in my opinion, to make sure that we bring receipts every single time, because like I just showed you guys, they put Elvis on this pedestal as though he was the king of rock and roll. Okay, like he was the one, like he created that sound, like he was original. And like I said, even in his video, when they did the biopic for Elvis, they made a very smooth point to try to make it seem like, oh yeah, the Black community, they just accepted him and all this other stuff, bro. But that's what they will do. They will change history if you allow them to. All right, if you allow them to, they'll say whatever they got to make it seem like their person was the originator. But we know, as foundational Black Americans, our recipes, the things that we've created, the genres, the inventions of all genres was based on us and what we were doing with instruments and our own voices. Okay, a lot of times that secular style of music, gospel specifically, influencing the entire genre of music, right? This is something that I tell you guys, I'm a music historian. I take time with this because this is something I do. All right, so let's bring up something else here. All right, so now let's go to the elder Ray Charles, one of the greatest to ever do it. Okay, this is his opinion. Okay, he was around during this time. He was a part of this community during this time when Elvis was being pushed. Okay, he saw it himself. So this is his opinion on Elvis. All right, let's listen up.
Nobody appreciates more different kinds of music than you. That's obvious. But did you feel at the time, in the 50s, early 60s, a resentment of some of the white performers who were copying R&B stuff and selling more records than you and your contemporaries were?
I just didn't object to it. I just felt that the music it wasn't that good to care about. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? But I'm being honest with you.
And that's real talk, because I always say this, man. Black Americans have to do 10 times more just to be able to get half of the recognition. Okay, 10 times more to get half of the recognition. All right, that's why even when you look at where hip hop is right now, where the rap game is right now, it's so oversaturated because they only choose a specific style of MCs and rappers to be able to push up. Meanwhile, a white rapper could be totally mediocre His skills could be totally the lowest level of skill set. He could also be the most unknowledgeable about the genre, and they will push that fool all the way to the top. Okay? In comparison to, let's say, the kid from down the street who's a MC, who's the illest lyricist in his city. He has to work 10 times hard just to be able to get a look from any of these major labels or an independent label at that matter. And that's why it's so crazy, because that's why when Ray speaks on that, when he says, I just didn't think the music was that good. Yeah. In comparison to our artists, this is small potatoes, bro. The smallest, most minute level. All right. These things can't even be compared to what we created. And that's what he's alluding to right here. It's like, bro, I mean, I didn't even think it was all that good. And I agree, because if you really listen to the music and the style, it's so generic. And that's why even if you listen to Jack Harlow's album, all right, cool, yeah, you're working on R&B, it's so generic in comparison to our heavy hitters in R&B. But they don't talk about them albums, right? They don't give them the same recognition like they would a Jack Harlow, right? They don't even get the same push. Okay, I have never seen this many people talking about Jack Harlow, who's a totally mediocre R&B singer. Like he's a totally mediocre rapper. But here we are having to prove and understand and go through the history so that people can understand that there's a blueprint to this whole scenario. The way that they go about this, there's a blueprint to it. And I just wanted to make sure that I showed you guys the way that these things were happening, and making sure that I'm showing you guys as well the history of this, because this has been happening for the longest. All right, so I'm gonna let Ray continue to cook.
Maybe some exceptions, though. I mean, Elvis was a talented guy.
Well, okay.
Okay.
So you know better than I.
Yeah.
Let me ask it differently. How good was Elvis?
What Elvis did, he caused a lot of the populace, if you want to, and usually when people say populace, they usually mean white people, to start listening to a lot of music that normally they wouldn't have been listening to. I guess I'm going to lose at least about a third of my fans right now. But to say that Elvis was so great and so outstanding, like they say, he's the king. I got in trouble because one guy asked me this question, and I said, the king of what? And he got mad at me.
The king of what? Okay? The king of what? And that is facts. The king of what? Not rock and roll. Not in comparison to our greats. There's no comparison. And so that's what it was like when you're really thinking about the work that it took for all of our foundational Black American artists to be able to reach the levels that they reach. Specifically, think about this. Ray Charles was blind, okay? Ray Charles was blind, and he became one of the greatest artists who ever lived. Figure out how to play the piano while being blind. Same for my GOAT, Stevie Wonder, okay? Blind. Right? And they still were able to take things to the heights that no one has ever seen before. Okay. Shout out to Tyrion. Same, bro. The king of what? The king of what? Not rock and roll. There's no way. I literally can go down a list that is 20 people long that we're talking about when it comes to rock and roll artists in our community. Please, bro. What are we talking about, dude? The king of what?
I don't think of Elvis like that because I know too many artists that are far greater than Elvis. I think Elvis person came along at the right time. Well, here was a white kid that could do rock and roll or rhythm and blues or whatever name you want to call it, and the girls could swoon over him. Nat Cole got in trouble in Alabama when the women swooned over him.
Did you catch that? All right. Nat Cole got in trouble when the woman would swoon over him, and that's facts. That's the difference, okay? What we were up against and what the climate was when we had our artists at the top in comparison to theirs, we could literally go to venues, and if there were white folks at the venues who were feeling Nat King Cole and all these very early artists, Chuck Berry, Ray Ray Charles, all right, they could literally get lynched. All right. They would have to run from lynch mobs because this was what was going on, man. Even a blind man could see the BS facts. Thank you, Tandria, for, you know what I mean, being in the chat. And that's just facts, man. Anybody could see what was going on and how this was actually not even of the level, not even on par to where we talking about right now, okay? What we're talking about as the greatest artist to ever live, he doesn't even stack up. He doesn't even hold a candle to ours. And that's just facts.
Got put out of town. And black people been going out shaking their behind for centuries. And what's unusual about them shaking their hips and stuff? And that's all Elvis was doing, was copying that.
Man.
And he was doing our kind of music. He was doing the Willie Mae Thornton, Jailhouse Rock. That's black music. So what the hell am I supposed to get so excited about, man?
That's black music, okay? It's never gonna go away, dude. Salute to Johnny. He says, never forget the Goodfellas scene. Yeah, man. That's facts. I hope I'm not kissing Nat King Cole over here. No, bro, this is just facts. These are some of the greatest to ever live. And that's what I mean. For our artists, we had to be 10 times better just to get half of the credit, just to get half of the recognition. Okay. And that's why even when we saw what was happening with Sinners, so many people were so anxious because we knew there was no way that Michael B. Jordan can play two roles at the same time and then be snubbed. There's no way. This has never happened in the history of acting and drama that a guy can play two people at the same time and not receive recognition. And that's why so many people were up in arms like, nah, he better get that. Ain't no way. And that's just facts, man. Centuries, he's letting it be known. Yes, man. We've been doing this for a long time. Foundational Black American music is the culture of all music. Everything stems from what we created. So when he says that we've been moving our bodies to this for centuries, that's facts. Because I hate to bring this back, but even when you talk about the metaphoric understanding of Sinners, the juke joint, that was our platforms. That was where we had our spot to be able to go and listen to our greatest artists because they weren't being able to be displayed in the biggest venues and some of the greatest venues of all time. Okay. They didn't have that. So we had to build our own so that they could go on what they considered back in the day, the Chitlin circuit. All right. The Chitlin circuit was just for us going through all these small bars and all these small juke joints throughout the South and also up north to be able to make money and tour to be able to touch their fan base. All right. Because it just wasn't happening at that time, man. Straight up. Now you see, yes, sir. K-pop is considered now the hottest, but it's like, come on, man. What are we talking about? Everything that they do is based on what we've been doing. Okay. Girl groups, boy groups. We are the archetypes of that. All right. Hey, salute, Ezra. Thank you for pulling up. Hey, I'm trying to do what I can. Salute. Hey, Danita says, man, our people been them guys. This is facts. That's why I always go back. That's why it's always important for me to bring up the history of these things, man, because this is something that I see a lot of channels when they go on these type of rants, they don't show it. I'm going to show my work. All right. I'm going to show every single aspect of this. Okay. Obviously, you know, if there's copyright, then whatever, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, you guys need to see the history part so that we can work our way down this timeline so you guys can see how this has been happening for a very long time. This is in the 50s, y'all. Okay. This is in the 50s. Come on, man. Almost 80 years ago. What are we talking about, bro?
But I think all this stuff about saying he's the king and he's the... it's a piece of bunk. Sorry. Next word, don't ask me no more about Elvis because I got in enough trouble as it is.
I think you covered it, though. I don't think a follow-up is necessary.
Okay.
Now, look how they'll go away from that real quick. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is real, right? There ain't no king. King of what? King of not of rock and roll. There's no way. Because at the end of the day, when you're talking about the actual architects of these genres, it was us. We were the ones who started this. Okay, we were the ones who created this. You know what I'm saying? Salute. Let's go back here. All right, Johnny says K-pop is the Asian Jackson 5 new edition. Yeah, and don't forget TLC. Don't forget Escape. Don't forget, okay? I can keep going. I don't forget the female groups, y'all, because TLC is the archetype for what these K-pop female groups are doing right now, okay? TLC, I grew up with a sister who was obsessed with TLC, all right? I used to have to listen to it every day. All right. So I understand the stature and the look because all of her friends used to dress like that and be on that type of time. All right. They study us just to copy. It's wild. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But that's what I'm saying. The blueprint is using our creative property and intellectualness to take it and then flip it, make it into their own. You know what I'm saying? And then go ahead and try to distance themselves as far away as they can from our community. And then as well, what they do in the back end is talk down on our genres. Ain't that funny? How now he's talking down on rap music when rap music was the genre that helped you gain popularity and status? Oh, that's funny. That's real funny, man. Ray Charles told the truth about Elvis. Yeah, and that's why I had to bring that up because Ray Charles is a GOAT. And he has a voice and he saw everything. You know what I'm saying? He was in the community. He saw what happened. And so his perspective is very, very important to this story that I'm telling right now. All right. Salute to Turi. And he says, I feel like we created the remix just so they couldn't catch the rhythm. And it got a little fast and funky for him. Yeah, man. And that's what they say. Like they can't necessarily catch up because the way that their cadence is different. They're always a little behind it. Let me see if I can find this video where my brother talks about this. All right, hold up. Let's see. Let me look this up real quick. But yeah, let me read these chats real quick. Yeah, man, they were great. All right, it definitely was a family effort of correction on hip hop and all of that. People can conceive that all of us came out of this. Yeah, man, it's crazy. It's really crazy, honestly. Like, it's wild. Dress like us, try hard to dance like us. Yeah, man, this is facts. Kid Rock Jr. Yeah, I'm gonna bring it up just so you guys can see. You know what I'm saying? This is it right here. You guys can see. Even look at the picture of Kid Rock. He got braids. He got individuals. Okay, he has individuals, man. All right, this is crazy, dude. Because you got to look at the stature, look at the way that they're dressed, look at the costume. Okay, like look at the costumes, bro. They're wearing costumes, and that's why I wanted to make sure I put them next to it with the MAGA hat. Okay, like because it's insane, bro. Like, look at how different they changed up the costumes, man. Like, and it's wild because there's so many people who go out of their way, right, to create these narratives and make it seem like foundational Black Americans is always complaining about something. But in reality, all we do is bring up the historical aspects of this stuff, man. We saw for generations how they're going around stealing, right? Stealing our music, stealing everything that we do. All right. And what are we supposed to do? We're just supposed to just sit back and let that go. Like, we're just supposed to just let them do this. No. And that's why I love the fact that we're in this time now where foundational Black Americans are gatekeeping, right? There's a gatekeeping aspect that's happening right now through the delineation movement, right? And I've always been very, very, particular and careful about a lot of things, specifically intellectual property, because intellectual property is something that as foundational Black Americans, we are in abundance. All right. We don't even have to try. All right. We always just have a certain, creativity that cannot be duplicated. Right. Like, it's different, man. Like, it's really different. And I understand why there's not like, a push, because a lot of people like to always try to, you know, manipulate what we got going on. And it's very funny, you know what I'm saying? Because, all right, let me bring this up. I got it now. All right, took me a little time, but here we go. Let me pull this down. Let me pull this up. Okay, this is Miles Davis. All right, one of the greatest jazz musicians of all time. All right, and he's going to explain the difference, okay, between the way that white musicians play music and the way that black musicians play music. And somebody alluded to it in the chat, right? The rhythm is off in the remix, like Torian said, right? So he explains it right here. Okay, listen to this.
Genetically better than white musicians? Get me in trouble.
Not better, but they play different. White musicians seem to lag behind the beat. You know, I don't know why.
Does black musicians hurt more?
What do you mean hurt more?
I mean, is it?
It's not that cliche.
I mean, it's not that easy to say that because you came out of slavery, you play on the beat.
I have nothing to do with it.
All right.
I told a student teacher of mine like that in Juilliard. She started talking about, well, you know, black people were sponsored at night, and they say that's where the blues came from. Before I raised my hand, I said, listen, my father's rich, my mama's good looking, right? And I can play the blues. I never suffered and don't intend to suffer.
All
right, you guys catch that, okay? Because when you really think about it, it's bigger than just our struggle, okay? And he alludes to that, all right? People don't understand that Miles Davis came from money. He came from a very, very rich family. He was the one. So going to Juilliard and trying to listen to white folks tell him how he's supposed to understand the blues, nah, y'all never understand because it's not in you. And like he said, they lag behind the beat. He don't understand why. It's not in them. That's just what it is, man. We don't have to complicate it. Like he said, it's not that complicated. Okay. It's just very, very real how you can tell the difference. And whether they want to try to emulate, whether they can try their best to make something sound like something else, it will never sound like us. All right. And that's just facts, bro. Hey, bastardization of music. Yes, sir. Thank you, Ezra. That's facts. The bastardization of music is real. Vanilla Ice is another one. Yeah, man. You know, and Vanilla Ice, in my opinion, he didn't, you know, really change up to the country route, but he definitely came back later talking crazy about hip hop when that shit put him on. FBA to Stardom pipeline for all of them. Yes, indeed. 100% using our genres, our popular music to elevate themselves and platform themselves just to go back and turn their back on us and say that you guys are heathens. I don't like this music. All you guys talk about is braggadocious, la, 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 la. And then now you're an R&B singer. You're a country singer. Like, bro, get out of here, family, please. The movie Bring It On was a literal cultural appropriation. Yes, sir. And it was in real time. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we see a lot of, right? Is across all the arts, whether it be dance, whether it's music, whether it's painting, whether it's art, anything that is a form of expression for foundational Black Americans, no one can ever replicate it. So what they do is they'll try their best to copy it and make it their own while discrediting and putting us down, right? Which is insane, bro. Insane. Disguised as cheerleader movie. Yes, and sir. Precisely, man. I love this interview too, because like I said, Miles Davis is one of my biggest inspirations. You know what I'm saying? And when he would speak, it was always in a specific pattern. It was never in a subservient way. It was always particular. It was always intricate. It was always intellectual. And so you can't be nothing but, you know, inspired by that. You know what I'm saying? It's bigger than trauma. Yes, indeed, it is. They don't have that same soul okay, like we do. All right, there you go. Soulless. That's facts. They are, man. They don't have the same soul like we do. They don't have the same aspect when you're looking at the way that we create music, the creativity that oozes out of us. They will never have that because it's not in them. All right. We have real feelings and pour it into the music. Yes, we do. We pour it into the songwriting. We pour it into the instrumentation. We pour it into the arrangement. We pour it into the imagery. All right. A lot of the imagery that a lot of foundational Black Americans, specifically Black American music, was stemmed from is directly connected to our creativity and our direct feelings and heart. All right. And that's just facts, man. You cannot replicate it, man. Like 5% of the 1,005 white people. Yeah. And it might be lower than that, dog. It might be lower than that, man. I'm just keeping it real with you. Hey, there was this PC individual who criticized the singer's performance at the Oscars. He said the singers were hooting and hollering. What he know about hooting and hollering? Facts. And look, like I brought this up earlier, right? Let's bring it up again, just so you guys can see, right? The evolution of African American music. If you look at the top 3 tiers, where does it start? It starts at sacred traditions, secular traditions, and secular traditions with instrumentation. So when we talk about hooting and hollering, like he's trying to describe it as, right? You have to now address the fact that where all of our genres stem from is the Most High God. Okay, this is God-given, right? And this is where we really going. Okay, it's God-given. It comes from a spiritual aspect. It cannot be replicated because spiritually it came to us, right? This was something that was spiritually gifted to us from the Most High, right? And that's what I try to tell people is like, when y'all try to talk about American music, you cannot talk about it without explaining the stems. And the stems are based on sacred traditions, secular traditions, and secular traditions with instrumentation. All right? So all these people who like to talk about, oh, the early African drum patterns and all this stuff, sure, okay. But if we're talking about American music, then you cannot do that without explaining or bringing forward the church, okay? Gospel music, okay? And the congregation of foundational Black Americans on plantations and in small churches, all right? Those churches expand out to, like we mentioned, all the rest of these genres, right? So then you have protest songs, you have game social songs, right? This is all a part of this, man. Straight up. Hey, this chart is available. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, the wording, obviously we're not using African American anymore, but it's still relevant in the sense that from 1992, this is as relevant as it could be when it comes to the breakdown of genres, right? All right. Salute, Ezra. Thank you. Yes. The literal salt of the earth. Yes, 100%. The sand of the seas. If you know, you know. You know what I'm saying? The sand of the seas. That's who we are. We are the foundation of all things. And when you do your history and when you look up the knowledge of self, you will find this out too. You know what I'm saying? Salute to Terry. He says, some of the best singers came out of the church. Whitney, Brandy. Yeah, man, listen, my dad is a pastor. Everybody knows this. My family is a huge part of an institution here in Long Beach, all right? I grew up in the church, all right? My grandparents, my great aunts and uncles were a part of huge choirs that were literally putting out music, making albums. All right. So I grew up in a home always listening to people singing, people practicing, rehearsals. I grew up in that environment. So that's what inspired me so much to become a musician, to learn how to play instruments. Okay. That was a big inspiration for me because I grew up in the church. I grew up listening to gospel music. I grew up hearing some of the greatest singers. All right. This is facts. Aretha, James Cleveland, yes, sir, 100%. Quartet singers in the South. Like I said, these are all the stems of this, all right? Salute, yes, sir. Facts, man. This is all a part of the structure that we're talking about right now, right? And that's why I wanted to make sure when I was, putting together this stream that I did my, due diligence to show you guys exactly, right, what the history is first, right? Because when I bring up these guys now, right? Hold up, let me make sure I get it right here. There we go. When I bring up these guys, right, we cannot do that without understanding the structure from which they're trying to platform from, okay? Country music is our music. Whether they try to escape, right, because now, right, it is predominantly dominated by those people, it doesn't matter because we invented the genre, okay? So let's bring up another one here, all right? So look, let me bring this up here for you guys. I don't know if you can see it, but what we got right here is the tree, okay? This is what I call the Black American music tree, all right? So if you look here, the beginning, the middle, right, the heart of all music, all genres is soul music, okay? What we consider soul music, what we just spoke about when it comes to the church, gospel music, it all comes from the soul. And that's something, like I said, the Most High gives us this. Nobody else, all right? They cannot tap in like we tap in. And that's why what Torian said about, the hooting and hollering, that's us tapping in, all right? That's us tapping into something spiritual, what's in the room with us. And that's why when you had that scene with sinners and they're talking, right? They're going back and forth before they perform. And they're saying, man, to be a blues singer, to sing the blues, it is something spiritual. It's something that cannot be replicated. We are creating magic when we sing. This is magic. It's magic what we do. And that's facts. When you open that room up, when you open that voice up, you are inviting the ancestors in, okay? They are in the room with us right now. And so the point of that is, as much as they try to replicate, as much as they think that, they could be the soul, they cannot. They cannot. They never will. They never will, all right? Because we are the true living people who have taken this to the next level, right? So look, then you have all the stems on the outside: disco, jazz, R&B, funk, P-funk. You even go all the way up to 80s funk, disco. You have electronic, house music. All of these things stem from what we just talked about, guys, okay? It all comes back. And that's why it's so important for me. I didn't want to just sit up here and talk about Jack Harlow. I wanted to show the history before we even start talking about Jack Harlow and what he's doing. He's just been following a blueprint that everybody else has given to him. And that's just facts, man. That's just facts. Look at this. You know what I'm saying? Everything stems from us. All right. Salute to Ezra. He says, even our HBCUs are amazing. Yes. I mean, you got to think about the bands, right? The bands, the fraternities, the sororities, the way that they do their dances, all this stuff, how everybody now is starting to do that. Everybody now is starting to do walking the lines and all this stuff. That's from us. They can't help themselves, y'all. They cannot help themselves when it comes to what we do, because we do it in such a way that is so inspiring that they can't help themselves. They have to emulate it. We the true. Yes, indeed, Tandria. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Salute to Johnny Retro. He says, like D'Angelo making the Voodoo album at Jimi Hendrix Studio. Us. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't understand that, where D'Angelo was tapping in. All right. He was tapping into the energy, right, at those studios. Okay. He was tapping in to what it meant to be in the same studio, using the same equipment, using the same, processes that Jimi Hendrix used. and to be able to get that sound, right? This is a big part of if you've ever created music, if you've ever been, around it, the process. This is very important to how these things are created. You know what I'm saying? Salute. Tandra says the ancestors chilling heavy with us daily nowadays. They know we've been holding court. We holding it down, man, and we're not allowing anybody to be able to change the narrative or to be able to dictate what's going on. And that's why I said the gatekeeping right now is at an all-time high because it's necessary. We keep seeing the same thing over and over. We keep seeing the same story. We keep seeing this. You feel me? We keep seeing this. And we tired of seeing this. All right. We tired of seeing these dudes come into our community, try to platform themselves, using our styles, using our, music. And then once they get what they want, they're out. Now it's, I don't make that type of music. Now I'm too good for this. Now I'm this. Now I'm more conservative. Now I'm going to, align with my community. We tired of that, y'all. We done seen it. And that's why I had to make sure that I showed you guys the history of this, how long this has been going on. Okay. Because it's not just them. All right. Y'all know that the Beatles were directly influenced by Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. We know that, right? Let's bring that up. The Beatles, right? And let's do the Beatles and Muddy Waters, right? Let's bring that up because it's very important for y'all to see how lame it was for these people to try to use, you know what I'm saying? Like to try to use Muddy Waters and say, oh, well, Muddy Waters, we had to send him to the UK because, he wasn't getting any support over here. Yeah, that's because anytime we would have our own spaces, y'all would destroy them. The artists that needed to get the platforms, we didn't have them because of Jim Crow. How are we supposed to support our artists when you guys are literally going out of your way to destroy our spaces? Come on, man. What are we talking about, bro? Like, what are we talking about? Let me pull this up too real quick because it's important for me to make sure that we, bring this full circle. All right. So let's talk about this. The Beatles were heavily admired Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf as a foundational influence. Okay, with members even requesting to meet him upon their first U.S. arrival. While not directly covering his songs in studio, they were deeply influenced by his electric blues and the broader Chicago blues scene. Okay, filtering this style through the 1950s rock and roll. Okay, what are we talking about, guys? What are we really talking about? Because I really get upset when people try to tell me how great the Beatles are and, oh, they're one of the greatest bands to ever live. Yeah, right, dude. How is that possible when Muddy Waters is literally the one who created everything for them? All right, what are we talking about, man? What are we talking about, bro? I hate that Little Richard game the Beatles gave. Yeah, man, what are we talking about, bro? Let's talk about it. However, MJ got Little Richard his masters for him and did not make him pay for it. Yeah, MJ was a real one, bro. People forget Michael Jackson was behind the scenes working for a lot of these early artists to make sure that they got their royalties back and they got a lot of their money that was owed to them because what a lot of these people were doing to them, stealing their music, stealing their styles, being able to go and leech off of what they were doing. All right, we ain't gonna allow that around here. MJ got a hold of listen, MJ, in my opinion, was the reason why they took him out. Y'all ready to talk about that? Y'all ready to talk about him getting ready to buy Sony? All right, and then mysteriously he passes away. Y'all help me understand because we already know Michael's estate is valued at $1 billion, and this was before the valuation in the last couple of years. Okay. Michael Jackson was getting ready to go on tour, one of the largest grossing tours that has ever been created. All right. He was going to make a massive bag when he went on tour. And then all of a sudden, when he's about to make these strategic moves with what the Beatles catalog and every other catalog that he was in possession of, he was now going to acquire Sony Music. When he was going to do that, all of a sudden he mysteriously, passes away. I don't know, man. That sound a little crazy to me. That sound a little crazy to me. That sound a little too coincidental. And maybe we'll talk about that. You know what I'm saying? Michael was down for the cause, making power moves. Yeah, behind the scenes, man. He couldn't do it up front because he already saw what they was doing to him in the media. And we already know that was a play. What they were doing to him, trying to tarnish his, reputation, that was a part of what they were trying to do to, like I said, not make his acquisitions work in the right way. You know what I'm saying? That's right. I remember the speech he gave. Yeah, man. He was ready to make some power moves, man. And they were not gonna let that happen, y'all. They weren't gonna let Michael Jackson do that because they already knew what Michael Jackson was gonna do when he got them catalogs. Okay, so it's very annoying to me, bro, when I hear a lot of these people talk about the history of music and the history of rock and roll and the history of the blues and jazz and all this stuff, and they try to shoehorn in their artists. Meanwhile, they try to downplay our artists. You know what I'm saying? They try to make it seem like something that is not. And that's why I felt like it was important for me to bring this up. You know what I'm saying? For me to make sure that I showed you guys the blueprint, because it's bigger than just Jack Harlow. You know what I'm saying? I care less about this guy, honestly. The album was mid. But what we do need to do is make sure, as foundational Black Americans, especially with this platform that I'm building, it's based in history and facts. And I'm not going to let people forget what the blueprint is and who actually created it, who started the blueprint. You know what I'm saying? Who they call the king of rock and roll. And not only that, you got, guys like Gene Simmons from Kiss talking about, oh, he don't think that rappers should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like, what a loser, bro. A dude with a literal afro. Like, bro, if you don't go and chill somewhere, bro, and grow up, because if we talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that's ours. That's ours. All right. We are rock and roll, family. And that's why it's very important for y'all to make sure that you guys don't forget your ancestors who created these genres, who died for these genres, who died, a lot of them not realizing their potential because of the oversaturation of a genre that belonged to them in the first place, And that's why, even if you look on my channel, I have a video where I'm, talking about D'Angelo. It was during his passing, and I did a very dope tribute video. So y'all make sure y'all check that video out. I did a tribute video to him, and I talked about the history of rock and roll in that tribute, because there was a lot of interviews that D'Angelo did where he spoke about Black music and the fact that rock and roll and soul music is integral in the entire pop genre. Whatever you consider pop now, our king of pop was the one who was inspired by James Brown, okay? Who, in my opinion, is one of the most influential artists who ever lived, all right? James Brown influenced the king of pop, okay? And everybody knows that James was the king of soul, all right? So if you look at that lineage, you can see it right down the line. And then, of course, gotta shout out to the ancestor Prince. You know what I'm saying? We can't forget Prince, all right? Prince being one of the greatest guitarists ever as well, right? Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, okay? Don't forget that, all right? That's just real, because like I said, we go through a lot of this where we're seeing more and more people trying their best to discredit and erase the history of foundational Black Americans and what we've accomplished, man. Yes, the artist formerly known as, yes, indeed. He had to switch it up because of the record labels and what they was playing with his name, all right? So look, that's why it's important, man, that we use our platforms to not only stand on business for what's going on currently, but we have to show the history from day one, what they've been doing to now, right? And that's why I'm gonna be real with y'all. That's why the movie Sinners was so influential because it touched on so many different things all at once. And if you know about the history of music, if you know the history of foundational Black Americans, watching Sinners was literally watching it play out all in one movie. Okay, we saw it. We saw, you know what I'm saying, the slave quarters. We saw the men who were imprisoned. We saw them singing in unison, the Negro spirituals. Okay, we saw them driving down the street, playing the guitar, all right, strumming, learning, expressing himself. Okay, we saw the church. These were all things that were integral, like I just showed you guys, in the breakdowns of each genre that is super important to the growth and the abilities of our people. Okay, and it was important, man, because these songs helped us get through a lot of tough times. You know what I'm saying? And even like my brother Miles Davis mentioned, it helped us gain to another level. It put us on that pedestal to where we could become the greatest in our path, in our genre. Okay, it can never be played with, y'all. And that's why it's important, man. Use your platforms to not only represent what's happening now, but help give people a history lesson. You know what I'm saying? Give them a history lesson. Let them see, like, nah, man, this is, you know, I know y'all mad about Jack Harlow now, but this has been happening for a minute. And we need to now make this our business to gatekeep any of our intellectual properties that are necessary for our growth and to support our artists who are in these genres. All right. It makes me so happy to see now we have these new Black rock and roll bands that are on the come up, man. I love to see that type of stuff. I love to see new soul artists. Okay. This is just a part of this, man. I love this type of stuff because it's super important for the growth of Black American art. And that's what we talking about. We talking about art, y'all. Majority of the collective getting on code. Yes, sir. It's important, man. It's important to be on code because right now is a very spiritual time. It's a lot going on in our world. So us closing ranks, us gatekeeping, us protecting our intellectual property, us protecting our art it has never been more important than now. You know what I'm saying? Because we see so much going on in the world. And not only that, we also are seeing the payoff for this, right? We're seeing the payoff for us investing in ourselves and our community. And we need to continue to keep that going, right? There's no more of us being able to just sit back and not allow people to know what's really going on and understand the history of what happened in the past, right? And that's why I'm feeling my lane. This is my lane. My lane is I'm going to make sure that I speak on not only current events, but I give you guys the history lesson to show, hey, man, this been happening for a minute. And like I showed you guys, when I brought up Roy Hamilton, they was in the chat talking about, oh, my God, yeah, because these don't get talked about. Roy Hamilton is literally the same voice as Elvis, bro. Nobody talks about Roy Hamilton, though. But we're going to talk about him. We're going to make sure that we pay homage to Roy Hamilton tonight because we ain't finna play with these people. We're not finna allow them to try to get that off and tell us the king of rock and roll is a white guy. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. It's impossible. It will never happen. Not on my watch. We will not allow that. You know what I'm saying? We got to make sure that we standing on business for the ancestors and for the people who paved the way for all these new artists to be able to do their thing, to have a platform. Okay? We watched Shabuzi go out here and disrespect our lineage and our ancestors in a genre that we created. All right? What you want us to do with that, bro? How are you not going to pay homage to the ones who actually created it? But no, you want to make sure that you put yourself first. And that's why we had a problem with it. And that's why a lot of people was upset with what he did. And justifiably so, because there were so many artists who have come before him who have never been able to touch that stage, who have never been able to receive that award. All right. But guess what? Now we standing on business. Oh, now Black Americans, y'all xenophobics, y'all doing too much. Y'all doing this, y'all doing that. All right, cool. Cool, bro. But guess what? We don't care no more. We don't care. I don't care what you have to say, bro. If you're not going to be on code, if you're not going to pay respect, then you're going to get checked. That's just the time we're in. That's the climate we're in. If you're not going to stay on code, if you're not going to be able to know your history, you're going to get checked. And I'm going to give you a history lesson, bro. That's just how we do it around here, man. That's just what it is, man. Salute. Straight up, man. So salute to y'all, bro. This was a cool stream. I wanted to make sure that I brought this to the table. We trying to get to 1,000 subs. Man, we are so close, bro. It's insane. I just hope y'all continue to subscribe because we are so close to 1,000. Let me look. Let me look where we at right now. Let's see. We are at 971, y'all. All right. We are 29 away from 1,000, man. So y'all make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you hype the video. It helps get into the algorithm because, like I said, when I do these type of streams, they literally will play with my streams. They will literally go out of their way to suppress these type of videos that speak on the historical aspect of how we are creators, how we are the innovators and inventors of these genres, man. Salute to No Love. Sup, family? Salute to you. Thank you for pulling up, man. Hey, but yeah, you guys make sure to subscribe, man, because we're trying to grow. We're doing what we can over here to make sure that these channels are where they need to be. You feel me? I'm trying my best to bring you guys high quality content. All I ask is that you subscribe and like the video. It's free. You know what I'm saying? It's free to like it. It's free to subscribe. You know what I'm saying? That's all I ask, you know? So salute to everybody, man. Thank you all so much. Appreciate all the new subscribers. Thank you guys for being so active in the chat, man. Everybody just coming through, man, showing love and putting it back out there. Because it's all love on my side. So I got to show y'all love too. You feel me? Thank you guys so much. I'm Brandon B. This is Elite Media, man, and I'm out. Peace.